Do you get the feeling sometimes that whenever you try to change something in your life, you don't see any kind of progress? Maybe you decide to start a new habit, like going to the gym or learning a new skill, and that gets you motivated and excited. But after a week, you start to question if it's even worth the effort, if anything will ever change. Well, this is exactly how most of us feel whenever we try to implement changes in our lives. We expect instant results and we get frustrated when we don't see them. But what if these small and seemingly insignificant actions that you take every day are what will have the biggest impact on your future and you just don't realize it yet? Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a big forest. You are holding a seed in your hand and you start to feel the astonishment and wonder that something so small could possibly grow to be one of those huge trees that you see in front of you. I don't think that seed is just a metaphor for growth. It is actually a blueprint for how everything in life unfolds. The most significant changes that we experience in our lives don't come from massive sweeping efforts, but from the tiniest, most unremarkable actions that we take every single day. This idea might seem counterintuitive at first. However, it is a secret that most successful people know, and they take these small actions very seriously. So it has been over 3 years since I started with self-improvement, and I have read countless self-help books and listened to more podcasts than I could count. And it is this exact idea that keeps popping up over and over again. Small actions hold immense power. You can hear many famous podcasters and speakers talk about it, and you see it mentioned in many famous bestsellers. Atomic Habit, The Compound Effect, The Psychology of Money, and in endless other books. But why do so many authors and successful people keep coming back to this specific idea? They are pointing to something extremely fundamental about how big things happen. It is the small and what feels like unimportant actions that define our entire future. It actually took me a long time to fully grasp this idea, but as I started to see its impact on my life over the years, everything began to make sense. So why do small actions matter so much? Nature is actually the best at showing us how small things create the biggest impact. As you stand at the edge of the big forest, you might wonder how something so immense came to be. It's hard to imagine that everything you see around you began with something as small as a single seed, a sprout that grows to become a young tree, standing a little taller each year. That tree then begins to drop seeds of its own, which get carried by the wind and the birds to be scattered across the land. These seeds take root and begin to grow, and slowly more trees begin to rise. Decades would then pass, and what started as one small seed has now become a thriving forest, a place that sustains countless forms of life. This idea of gradual growth and accumulation isn't just a concept found in nature. It is evident in our daily lives as well. Just think for a second about learning a new skill. Any kind of skill, like playing the guitar. You pick it up for the first time and decide to practice for 10 minutes. You strum a few chords and it sounds rough and uncoordinated. You might get upset thinking that your practice isn't doing any difference. What's the point of trying? But if you push through the frustrations and practice every single day for maybe years, what do you think will happen? There is no doubt that you will most likely become skilled at playing the instrument. The skill you once thought impossible to master becomes a part of who you are. And it all began with that first decision that you made to practice for just 10 minutes. A decision you kept making day after day. Small actions compound over time. This principle applies to every aspect of your life. Your health, your finances, your social life, and your mindset. Everything in life works in the same way. The more you think about this idea, the simpler it gets and the more sense it makes. But if it is so simple and obvious, why do we often overlook it? Why does it have to be the secret of success? And why do we constantly struggle to see the impact of small things on the future? To answer all of these questions, we'll have to go back and look at Mother Nature. Our brains have evolved to focus on the immediate future and surroundings, which made sense for our ancestors who were under constant threats and needed to be in survival mode. Back then, paying attention to what was happening right now could mean the difference between life and death. However, in this modern world that we live in, there is comfort and security almost everywhere. We are no longer under constant threat. Our priorities have basically shifted towards building for the future. Yet our instincts still push us to expect immediate results and instant gratification. Certain aspects of modern life amplify this tendency even further, with so much around us glorifying this need for instant rewards, whether it's TV, social media, pornography, or video games. All of these different distractions make it harder to focus on the long-term goals and future rewards, which are needed to live a happy and fulfilling life. So we are great at seeing what is right in front of us today, tomorrow, or maybe next week, but beyond that, things start to get blurry. Our short-sightedness makes it difficult for us to appreciate the compounding effect of small actions. And that is exactly why it is so hard to build momentum and good habits in our lives. We crave immediate rewards, and when we don't see them, we tend to underestimate or abandon the small habits and decisions that could make the biggest difference later in our lives. And yet, whether we are conscious of it or not, our future is being shaped by these small decisions that we decide to take, or rather not to take. So, if our best interest lays in making the right choices for our future, how do we overcome this tendency to focus only on the short term and shift our attention to the bigger picture? In essence, the secret lays in tricking our minds and, in a way, going against our human nature. It is about developing a far-sighted perspective, planting a seed and understanding that with time and constant care, it will grow into something big and meaningful. You have to trust the process. To be able to cultivate this far-sighted perspective, it is essential to set smaller and more manageable goals. Instead of aiming for big changes that feel overwhelming and unrealistic in the moment, we need to break things down into steps that can be achieved in days, weeks, or even months. Now, I realize this might sound contradictory at first. How can we develop a far-sighted perspective while focusing on small and immediate goals? Think of it like this. Your long-term vision is a destination that you want to aim for, and it is essential to have that vision. It is your guiding star, the big picture of who you want to become and what you want to achieve. But in order to get there, you need to navigate through the here and now, and that is where the smaller, more manageable goals come into play. They are the stepping stones that help you move forward, one small action at a time. If you focus too much of your time and energy on your end goal and vision, you might lose sight of the small actions needed to get there, and you won't have any long-term success or see any big changes. By setting smaller goals, you become more mindful of your daily actions and can put more effort into them. This method can be applied to anything that you are trying to improve at. If you're a socially anxious person and you want to engage with people that you find interesting, jumping in and forcing a full conversation might not be the best approach. If instead you start small by smiling at people around you, or maybe asking them one or two simple questions, that will gradually build up your confidence that will eventually lead to more genuine conversations. The principle is always the same for anything that you try to improve. Start small and let those small actions build up over time. The next time you are tempted to dismiss a small step and see it as unimportant, remember that it could be the one thing that tips the scale and start a chain of positive actions that lead to big changes. The progress may be small and hard to see, but every small choice you make will matter. Personally, I had to learn this lesson the hard way. For years, I doubted myself if the choices and decisions that I am making will ever gonna make a difference. But over time, I started to notice the changes, not in one big, grand transformation, but rather in the slow and steady evolution of who I was becoming. Every small choice mattered, and every little positive action was a step forward, even when it didn't feel like it. And yes, I still have moments where I feel lost and question my progress. Our nature isn't always easy to resist, as we all get impatient sometimes, trying to seek instant results even when we know that good and meaningful things take time. So this process is really all about planting those seeds, because in the end, they will sprout and make the biggest difference.